games have gone today, but you pull out a Bard and all of a sudden you got to be respecting the support so much more, something that both of these players are particularly good on. So keep an eye out for it, if not in Game 3, Game 4. I'm already noticing no Jarvan ban has popped out just yet.
Yes.
IG, they will snap that up. Nom, 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 nom.
I mean, this is like one of Jwei's favorite champions to go for. This was permabanned, and this is the last of his top 4 characters that is available. So IG, I wouldn't hate if they just immediately snag up the Jarvan, but maybe NIP have something in their back pocket capable of responding to J4. I know Guwon likes the Qiyana, which is good against Jarvan. Malphite as well. Not necessarily on the same tier as Jarvan. They want to do very different things, but is good at responding to what Jarvan wants to do later on. And IG, not going to go for the J4. Instead, going to slam the Ambessa, which, mind you, is worthy of being flexed around. This would, I think, be a champion Jwei would like to go, given that Ambessa is one of the big engagers in any comp that she is a part of. And Jwei traditionally is the guy that fills that role on IG.
I'm looking at this Ezreal hover as well, likely going to be locked in, but I think that one of the awkward things is that, yeah, if you do go Ezreal, you have to go Bard with it, or that likely gets taken away. And the Jarvan is a lot safer here, but it does leave you with an awkward thing. Do you pick up Ezreal and now give up the opportunity to pair him with something like a Bard that can take advantage of how safe he plays? I guess we'll find out whether IG want to pick that up right now, but this seems like a pretty easy takeaway if IG want to go for it.
This also feels like maybe a Thresh angle, because you do have the Jarvan. One of the biggest thorns in any Jarvan side is having to deal with a Thresh constantly flaying you with that Flagon Drake. So if you want to take away that counter and give it over to Zhuo, a guy who we know loves to go for the Thresh at any opportunity that is given, I do think that there is an angle for NIP to do that. And also, just another engage tool, I think, will open up the floor for the solo laners of NIP to be a bit more aggressive and have a bit more high-end damage as the factors in their kit. Basically, allow Kair and Hoya to let loose in this game, knowing that this Jarvan and potentially Thresh can set up for them in those fights.
Normally we don't talk about hovers, but I do think it's important since we locked in Alistar and Kai'Sa. There's clearly a lot of dive going on here, and IG did hover Nocturne, which is important because of the Ambessa's nature as a flex pick. They're definitely aware that at least with that hover, they're baiting a Nocturne.
Sylas is unbanned. I'm just now realizing Sylas is not banned. He's not Fearless away. Alistar was picked without a response from NIP. I was thinking Sylas could have been the angle, but instead Kair is just going to snag away his Ahri. I do remember, I believe it was Nymeria talking about Kair as a player and saying that he is one of the best Ahris in the world. And statistically, this does back it up. He does currently have a 100% win rate on the champion over the course of the winter split. So it will be NIP's mid laner playing in his element with this Ahri pick, but he is doing it blind. So I do wonder what rookie will have up his sleeve. Of course, after NIP finish banning away a lot of the counters.
Moment of truth. Did this work out for IG? Did the Nocturne hover actually get NIP thinking here about banning that champion away? Because Nocturne synergizes super well with this composition.
Yep.
IG would just get to straight dive all day, create chaos, and NIP say, do it. I dare you.
I do think that the side of IG, with all of their dive, still lack, I feel, a solid extra damage dealer, because Ambessa is going to be there to cause chaos and cause disruption, and I do think it will be a bit before she can solidly stick on to a lot of these mobile champions of NIP. The more dive you have, the more damage threats you have on IG, I think the harder it will be for NIP to escape all of them just immediately dashing away, because as it stands, Jarvan's going to be able to, you know, get away. Ezreal can arcane shift. There's a lot of tools that NIP have to be able to just escape from this full dive comp on IG, and so I think just stacking damage threats really is the solution at this point. And so I'm looking at yeah, I think Viego is a beautiful solution here, because he loves having mobile champions that he plays against to sync with that Heartbreaker and those resets. I don't like Jax.
The Braum was an interesting pivot here as well. NIP sort of deciding between Leona, do we dive harder, or Braum,
Whoa.
do we peel for our backline? A Lissandra pick 4 for IG changes this game.
It does. It certainly does. That's a lot of lockdown for Rookie. And so I like that Wei is hovering these more aggressive picks, because when you have the setup on a champion like Lissandra, you can just let loose. Lee Sin is going to be locked in here for Wei in game number 3. Dia, we called it. We said French picks might crop up in game number 3. IG got the message. Lissandra Lee Sin mid jungle.
Quax, be so for real with me right now. You're a huge jungle
be so
player.
For real.
Explain to me why on earth we are locking in Lee Sin instead of Nocturne here.
I mean, I think that Lee Sin, it just kind of feels like, again, what we were talking about. You need more damage threats. You need guys with high DPS, and Nocturne does deal a good amount of damage.
Yeah.
Lee Sin to a single target does more. And so I do
Sure.
think that is just kind of the factor that pushes IG's decision to lock this in for Wei over the edge. You need high DPS, and I think IG have drafted a comp that accomplishes that. Soboro, Wei, and Photic will all be really high in the damage department. Rookie and Jwei are going to be there to set up the play. So this just feels like a classic dive / front-to-back comp here for IG. And NIP, it feels like it is more or less about the scaling. You've got the Jarvan to be able to set up for plays early if there are opportunities. But I do think a lot of onus in this late game will be on Kair's Ahri and on Assum's Ezreal.
Yeah, the Kair's Ahri, for as much
So
as
fun.
the Lissandra intrigues me, has to be the focal point right now. I'm really looking forward to the 100% win rate Kair Ahri return in a game that actually should go really well for Ahri. She can play backline, she can kite back with something like an Ezreal. She can also look for assassinations so incredibly well. Kair has done that at a very high level throughout this entire season, and paired with something like a Jarvan, Ahri can be devastating. I think that she is the champion, he is the player with the most wiggle room as we load into our 3rd game of the series.
Getting a bit more enthusiastic about the Gyos that we're seeing across this series, but yeah, I mean, all eyes for me are on IG's mid jungle, at least in this early game. The setup from Rookie is going to be so prevalent in unlocking this Lee Sin and being able to make sure that Wei is not only a threat in the early game, but can transition into a legitimate backline threat in the mid to late game, where traditionally a champion like Lee Sin can be found to struggle. It's all dependent on how well they are able to snowball him in this early phase of the game.
Yeah, Wei's mechanical execution also going to be really fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Because Lee Sin, I mean, when you get to the late game, you ride or die on your mechanics, and your team does as well. Zhuo, another player that we could look at mechanically as being an interesting one. Not something you typically say about Braum, but the fact that he is going to be peeling against a composition with a lot of options to dive you is going to make it really interesting to note when he is positioning, where he is positioning, how, because Zhuo is the person who, especially when we think about Glacial Fissure, needs to be timing and aiming that particular cooldown really, really well.
Yeah, he is the main source of disengage here for NIP. If all else fails, if Guwon and Kair and Assum get picked off by this IG comp without their innate escape tools to be able to get out of dodge, Zhuo is going to be looked at as kind of that second safety net for those backliners of NIP to escape and deny that snowball from Invictus Gaming. So a lot of onus on Zhuo to just play defense for his team. Hoya as well is going to need to peel off with that knock-up on the Rek'Sai, but for the most part, I think this early game, Hoya is just looking to be a nuisance, and he certainly is accomplishing that, taking Soboro down to about 1/3 HP.
Yeah, the counter pick really working out. We didn't talk about the Rek'Sai into Mbessa matchup too much because, I'll be honest, Lissandra was picked up, and then Lee Sin was picked up, and everything else sort of just disappeared to me. But Rek'Sai in lane, pretty good matchup up against the Mbessa. This maybe not so comfortable for Care. Flash forward from Rookie right at the border of the tower, and instantly finished off. First blood goes to Jwei.
Really good adaptation there from Rookie on the setup as well. Isn't able to get the claw off to close the distance onto Care, so Flash W's roots down Care. And Lee Sin, Jwei is able to just immediately hop onto the Ahri. First blood over to IG, where we wanted to see the gold for them.
And IP, unfortunately, being forced back is Assum out of mana. Can't really effectively trade on Ezreal anymore. And Zhuo and he forced underneath tower with Jwei right next door. I'd be surprised to see a dive here, but I've been surprised before.
He throws down. He just throws down his E. Hey, what's up, guys? And you know, he's like a he's like an IRL vlogger or like a variety IRL streamer, just passing by, saying hello, and then moving on with the selfie stick and camera. I think Lee Sin would make a really good TikToker, to be honest with you. I know that's, but like, I feel like he would be the guy that, yeah. I don't know. Especially with that skin, like he looks so cool.
That is true. That is true. He is especially aesthetic. Lee Sin, definitely the recipient of some of the coolest skins in League. Has a lot of VFX that you can play with as well, which is really nice. Great shield animations. Yeah, there are a lot of top tier Lee Sin skins. We've picked a pretty good one for this matchup. Now to see if we can execute on the same level as that aesthetic. It was a pretty good start for Jwei, but Guwon is keeping up. Actually, just making sure that the early impact isn't just Lee Sin's is going to be a matter of more than farming your jungle, however. Guwon does actually have to show up in a lane pretty soon.
Guwon has also ended his second clear on the bot side, where both of his side lanes actually have pushed. So he's just going to immediately start up on that dragon because the map is in NIP's favor at the current moment to do so. Jwei does have an item advantage and is crossing over, though, so I think with that in mind, and with Rookie also hitting level 6, that guaranteed lockdown onto any single target, they're just not afraid to cross over and immediately bully the Jarvan off of that objective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Jarvan may be like 2/3 HP right now, but for a Lissandra and Lee Sin fresh off level 6, that's kill range.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That burst is just too much for any one NIP member to handle at this point in the game. And so, very wise choice to just respect it, back off, and may actually end up being Jwei who turns his attention on to the dragon. His bot side camps are the first to respawn. So Guwon, who is now on the top side, won't actually be able to steal anything away with Jwei going for this dragon.
So will he show up in a lane? I mean, I like the idea of picking up the dragon as well, but Guwon has got to get involved somewhere, and it's incredibly difficult to gank these lanes. I sympathize, especially ganking a Lissandra lane, but right now, Guwon is losing control of the tempo of this match, and he might even turn into a dive bot side as Jwei's already here. Guwon is ages away, and underneath the tower, it's a double knockup for Jwei. Oh. Another double knockup for Jwei, and Zhuo, last alive in the bot lane, will eventually fall to the last auto from Photic. That is beautifully, and I mean beautifully executed.
And I'm getting shades of game number 1. I mean, it's roams here from Jwei and Rookie linking up toward a side lane and making plays happen around the map. Another kill over to Jwei and a first for Photic. IG are just getting the gold all in the right locations to start up this game right now, Dia.
And just, you know, let's contextualize this. You're diving into Ezreal Braum.
Yeah.
And getting a double kill.
Yeah, beautiful kick there from Jwei. Buffers any kind of defense that Zhuo can lay down. You can see that he tried to throw down that Unbreakable, but at that point, you're 1 HP, your AD carry's dead, it's too late. The CC from IG was beautifully layered, and now NIP look for some kind of a cross-map play on this top side to get maybe a dive of their own, but Soboro just walks away.
I'll remind you that they also pulled this likely for the Void Grubs that are just now up, which does put some pressure on them because IG actually rotated to respond this time, something that we did not see the last time that NIP pulled their bot lane up top to get Void Grubs. Last time IG let it happen. This time, that is not the case. Rookie zones out care for the moment. NIP want to capitalize on it. Flashing on top of Rookie and forcing out the ult, but he's still in an awkward position. Cataclysm keeps him here. No flash, no ult, no way out. And Rookie will fall, leaving NIP with dominance over the top side. The option to look at these Void Grubs again.
Photic is pushing in the lane, though, and could maybe look to cross over, and IG, if they can just steal one away, I think can equalize this trade. But no, they're actually going to look for the two with Photic in the area and Jwei just that much stronger than Guwon. Despite the kill onto Rookie, a majority of the Grubs go over to Invictus Gaming in the end, Dia.
That's actually really devastating, is I think what I'm going to go with for NIP. You bring everybody up topside, you kill the opposing mid laner, and you still lose 2/3 of the objective?
Yeah, definitely as it feels bad. I think a large part of it was just the amount of ults committed by NIP to actually get that pick onto Rookie. You don't have Cataclysm, you don't have Spirit Rush, so in an actual fight, I think if it did devolve into that, IG would definitely have a fighting chance, given that Photic, Jwei, and Jwei all had their ult keys available. But yeah, Invictus Gaming going to be getting 2 of those objectives, and I am interested to see how this ends up trickling down and affecting the broader sense of the game, because when I think of Invictus Gaming's comp, I don't really think that Siege is one of the strong points of their team comp. So how they use it is a big question that is plaguing my mind right now.
But, you know, it's Lee Sin. Baron secures pretty good.
That is true.
There's always that. Photic diving on Assum right now. It is just going to be a little bit of damage. Not the kill, surely. Not the kill. Assum backs away under the tower, but
oh god,
we've brought the party, and now it's the kill. Now it's the kill, baby. Rookie flashes forward, secures that, ults Zhuo, and picks up a double kill in the bot lane. We are back to mid-jungle kingdom, Quax.
We absolutely are. IG playing to their strengths in NIP. They're going to look for a response, but Soboro has flash, has ultimate, and he has the understanding that a dive is about to commence.
Nice sidestep from Care does deny Soboro's escape and should finish off the kill. A charm lands underneath the tower, and NIP do answer 1 for 2. It's not perfection, but it is at least a response, something that they could easily have gone without.
Yeah, they burned the flash off of Soboro as well as the ultimate, so when he respawns, it's going to be a bit difficult for him to have relevancy if there ends up being a fight around this dragon, as well as Jwei being forced to cover off of respawn. NIP are going to have a lot of control to get down toward that bot side and actually threaten this upcoming dragon, as we do get a replay here. I love the aggression here from Photic. Even though he isn't able to get the kill, he sets up his bot lane beautifully to pick up this double. And I'm glad that Rookie as well is the guy to get both kills, because he is sacrificing his mid lane wave by abandoning it and giving Care over some of those plates. So does allow the Lissandra to make that roam worth it.
Got ult in 10 seconds. Nice flash forward from Jwei, the Alistair, making the difference once again as Soboro teleports into the back line. He is all over NIP. Rookie's in here with Zhuo, taking him down inside the pit. Soboro survives the Rek'Sai ult with 1 HP, and Assum is unlikely to meet the same fate, as he will not survive and be taken down by Jwei, or sorry, by Jwei and Rookie. Like we said, if you're around Jwei and Rookie, you're in kill range.
Yup, Jwei with another really beautiful kick there as well. Not only does it deal the damage on basically all of the NIP members, but it separates Guwon from the rest of the team. So it makes it super difficult for this Jarvan to actually survive by himself, as we do get a bit of a replay. I want to look at this kick from Jwei again. 3 members hit from that kick. Guwon's completely alone. Yeah, he just goes down, and Soboro is able to hold them all at bay. Once that TP is channeled, they all end up falling one by one, and IG end up picking up the Drake as well. So Jwei and Rookie just continuing to run over this game. IG going back to the root, the source, and the legacy players on their organization to come up clutch, and they absolutely are.
And there's been such a good example set by the bot lane as well. I want to give credit as our local bot lane sympathizer. This game has largely been around mid-jungle, yes, but we're seeing Photic and Jwei both understand that in these fights, be they skirmishes or full team fights, their job is to burn cooldowns and set up Jwei and Rookie.
Yeah.
Jwei, as an example, in that fight, had a pretty good headbutt pulverize just to find a knockup, but its true value is in setting up Jwei for the kick that follows afterwards, is in setting up Rookie for being able to walk in and lay down some AoE CC. This bot lane, it may look stylish. Photic may find a pop-off fight at some point, and I'm going to be really excited. But the early game value has been so massive in terms of throwing your body forward to get cooldowns out of NIP.
Gonna be okay for now, but I absolutely agree with you. I think one of the biggest examples of what you just stated, where Photic and Jwei are used to burn these really high important cooldowns off of NIP, was in that double kill that Rookie ended up getting. The dive from Photic, that almost overly aggressive look by the Kaisa, who wasn't able to get a kill despite burning that flash in an attempt to do so, burns the arcane shift, burns the heal. All of these defensive tools that Assum and Zhuo had are on cooldown, so by the time Rookie and Jwei arrive between the turrets to finish the job, they've got nothing left in the tank to be able to try and survive that.
And that's a very scary thing for NIP, and something that comes back to vision in a strange way. I mean, it hasn't really been a focal point of this series, but NIP need to know what's going on. They need to have vision control over the map, and that is something that hasn't really been their strength, be it in their series against IG or against BLG. Their vision game has not really been a huge focus for the squad. In this particular game, it needs to be, because if Jwei and Rookie are even remotely in your area, you need to know what's going down.
Yeah. Guwon showing on the bot side there to try and make an attempt onto Rookie's life, frees up IG to go onto this top side and basically get a free Herald for themselves. And because of this, they claim the Herald, they're going to be able to throw this in mid, throw this in bot, and get free passage for the next dragon that comes up in about a minute. It is really good macro sense coming out from the jungler of IG, and even now NIP can't look for a response play. Rookie clears out that wave, and no dive is possible onto the Lissandra. And even if you had a wave, Rookie's got flash, Rookie's got ultimate. There are so many anti-dive tools that this Lissandra has, it makes it so difficult to actually look for her in a side lane if you are NIP.
Yeah, she's so safe. And honestly, Soboro is going to be in a really similar situation later. Jwei is incredibly mobile as well, and it makes you wonder, what is Guwon really supposed to do? Is he ulting a Kaisa that ults out? Is he ulting an Alistar for real? Is he ulting Soboro? I mean, in a side lane like this, it's going to work. In a team fight, it's going to be a little bit more awkward. Soboro underneath his tower will fall. A good news story for NIP, but the Rift Herald that you talked about earlier, channeled in the mid lane, is likely going to let this tower fall as well. And I will trade my top laner for a mid lane tower all day, every day. All respect to my top laner.
Still 20 seconds, though, until Soboro comes up for now. It is a 4v5 with Hoya having that teleport. If NIP can pull the trigger really soon, they could look to try and have an advantageous fight, but they've got to do it ASAP. They're not going to commit to it, and IG, at less than 20 minutes into the game, Dia, are putting themselves at soul point.
Your kill range, he's in kill range! Care, Dragon's range gets finished off. God, you cannot step up to these two.
You can't escape it either. I mean, Care's got 3 damn dashes plus a flash, and he can't escape the mid-jungle of IG. It is such a dangerous game for them to play, but now they're going to try and
Teleport in by
capitalize,
Hoya.
look for a trade.
Numbers advantage might work in their favor, but like you said, they had to pull the trigger soon, and it's been a few too many seconds. Forward goes Jwei, forward goes Rookie. Hoya escaping their clutches just in the nick of time as Guwon now tries to engage onto Photic. Hoya's going to follow this up. They do find the AD carry. It is a good answer for NIP, and one that lets them continue walking forward. Jwei going to be fed directly to Assum. And those are two great kills to be given over to NIP should they wish to claw their way back into this game, and they do. Public execution is going to land, giving Soboro a way out, but NIP, they turned nothing into something there.
Yeah, good capitalization there from NIP, understanding that Photic was a bit too far out of position, and they do get themselves a kill that ends up turning into 2 as Jwei gives his life as well. As going back to this replay, I really want to pay attention to Photic's positioning after the fact, because right now it's just kind of jockeying for some damage, but then Photic goes up here, separates himself from the team, and then Guwon, yeah, I mean, you get hit by the Winter's Bite, perfect. It's a beautiful angle to go in. And then Hoya finds the angle. It just felt like Photic was a little too far up, and it ended up getting him and his support killed. No objective going to be capitalized off of by NIP on the bot side. They don't even get the turret in the bot lane, but it's more gold into their pockets at the end of the day.
And I will highlight, all of that could definitely caught Photic by surprise as well. He dies with flash and ult up. There were absolutely universes where this Kai'Sa lives. I'm not so sure that there are universes where Care lives. That seems a little bit less likely. Jwei just waiting on the last pulverize to help Guwon be taken out of the lobby, but that gets turned around pretty darn quickly as a turret helps out Guwon, securing a double kill at the end of that particular overchase by IG. It looked a bit silly, as IG definitely were in control of that until they weren't.
They just dumped all their CC, IG get a double kill, and they pushed their luck too far, like you said, so NIP managed to get 2 for themselves as well. Both of them, I believe, going on to the Ezreal, so it will be more gold over to Assum on this pick that we were questioning a little bit, just as a response to this heavy dive comp from IG, as we do get a replay. There's literally no universe where you can survive this as Ari, by the way. Like, that, of all the things that are inescapable, that is the most inescapable of all of them.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way. I'll be honest, though. There's probably a universe where they don't do whatever that last 30 seconds of it was, and that, I think, is the universe that IG and I would rather be in. It has equalized this game, though, and that I will take as a good news story. For me, not for IG, for me, because having a more even game, it's only going to make this one more exciting. As much as Lee Sin, Lissandra have been a terrifying combination, NIP are very, very much in this.
And this is kind of the part of the game that gets me a little bit concerned, because Lee Sin traditionally is a champion that, like we said in the early phases of this game, tends to fall off at around the 20-minute mark. Jwei has done a good job at keeping himself relevant and accelerated, but one mistake could be really detrimental to the snowball that IG have so meticulously built up over the course of this game, and it all could come crashing down in about 30 seconds here. Dragon is up, and NIP, with control of the river and easier access to mid lane, means that they'll get this wave under control and can transition that into control over the bot side river by extension.
And we've got to keep this in mind, too. You know, as much as Jwei could fall off, and we are going to be following this journey around the 20 to 30, 35-minute transition, he's living that Lee Sin dream, where you could be as fallen off as you want, and you get one good insec, and this game is all yours again, baby. He's going to land that first bit of the Sonic Wave. Doesn't actually follow it up. Beating his demons for now.
Yeah. Dragon will be started up. You can see how careful NIP are about approaching this, because Guwon, or rather Hoya, is on the flank.
Guwon's right next to the dragon now, so NIP, they know where their bread is buttered. They want that objective. Denying the soul here to IG is all that they need, but Lee Sin's got some pretty good objectives secure. You got to keep him off this. Jwei is going to get in there. Soboro right next to the objective. Rookie pops his ultimate. Care goes down, and so does the dragon. Ultimately, though, Assum has to get away from Soboro. Will jump backwards, but just to be finished off by Jwei and an IG who secure the dragon and the team fight.
Yup, NIP keep their eyes on the prize, and everyone, wow, I'm jumbling my words, but NIP end up going down. IG managed to secure themselves the soul. I want to take a look at how this is played, because it was actually really slowly started about both of these teams. I was surprised at how long this dragon managed to actually keep itself alive for. They both just drop attention on Drake. Who ends up pulling the trigger? So it's Jwei that goes in. Soboro follows up. And the damage from the Ambessa is honestly the thing that I think was the unsung hero this game. Soboro, I think, has started to hit his stride on this champion. And it's created kind of a triple threat for IG now, because on top of Jwei and Rookie, you now have to worry about the Ambessa as NIP.
The objective secure by Lee Sin was what I had my eyes on there. Just watching him hit the resonating strike into Smite. It's a gorgeous thing, and it's saved many, many a jungler. Unfortunately, it's not going to save Guwon, because he doesn't have those particular abilities. Instead, that is going to be a nice Dragon's Kick that serves Assum right up to the rest of IG. And you know what? I was pretty calm going into that, because I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Could NIP really, really all die here? And they did. They died a lot.
Yep. They died really fast as well. IG, Baron secure, Soul secure, and an extra bit of safety, particularly for Jwei, having that Guardian Angel, means that IG can look for these more daring, aggressive plays, these more aggressive engages, knowing that GA can give Jwei the safety necessary to get out in the end. And it just means that NIP, even with all of the confidence that we were expecting from them in this series, they just, I feel, don't have the damage to rip through all of these health bars with the Soul combined with Guardian Angels on some members. Beautiful.
You just get one insect, bro. And it's all good. That was a great fight, and illustrates a couple of important points. One, the insect that we talked about. Two, the vision that we talked about as well. We can even take a look right now. Up in the top side jungle of NIP, or I should say formerly of NIP, they can see nothing.
Nope. Now NIP, a lot of gray screens, I feel, are what I'm seeing in their future. Maybe a defeat screen at the end. IG, 8.5k gold ahead, but they're going to look for something crazy.
Care tries to reverse things, but does have to get back to the back line. Join up with Assum, who are just pumping damage into Jwei, who through the Unbreakable Will takes basically none of it. Photic commits into the back line with Soboro, and a slow front to back favors IG in every way. A triple kill goes the way of Photic, and IG are looking down at what could be the end of this game. It's just Care left alive, and a solo Ahri can only do so much.
And IG, one win away from completing their revenge. IG, with so many doubts and questions by everyone in the LPL community, one win away from shutting those up and showing everybody that they still have the sauce. That Jwei, Lee Sin, and that Lissandra from Rookie, whew, it was saucy.
It was extremely saucy. I was a big fan of this Lissandra Lee Sin combo. And the craziest part is that I kept doubting it, because I kept going, you know what? There's no way that the IG that I saw lose this series pulls off a Lissandra Lee Sin to close the game. And they do. And I think that the reality here, Quax, is that we're not watching the same IG that lost to NIP. I personally came into today thinking NIP had the harder series. They showed a lot of resilience here. They probably just win this game again and keep going. And IG, I don't know when it happened, and I don't know how it happened. But this looks like a different team, and a team that could very easily beat an NIP that I don't even think is playing that badly.
No, I think NIP are doing decent in this series. I mean, this is kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the stream, Dia, was that we were saying NIP have never really had the weight of expectations put on their shoulders up until this point. They weren't expected to beat IG the first time around. They weren't expected to be a team that could make it to Ascend, period, in the first split of the LPL in 2026. A lot of people power rank them toward the bottom of their group going into winter. And all of this feels like it is completely foreign to them, because now you're getting people saying they should be expected to beat IG. They should be expected to beat this Ascend team. They should be able to move on against AL in the lower bracket. And those expectations could be playing a factor in them just not being able to complete a lot of the characteristic outplays that we're used to seeing from them in a lot of their games.
And I think it's really important that it's only in Game 3 that we see IG be the ones to whip out pocket picks, to whip out something a little weird. They've found that, yes, their style, their signature does not have to change. They can still pair Jwei and Rookie up in the early game and have that be where they find success, but the champions that they are on are that much more flexible than what they've been starting and playing through the split with. I do want to highlight here as well, Photic doing a really, really good job. Soboro as well, but Photic really standing out as he was the one who was so often using his body to burn cooldowns in the early game, and he's still able to get out of here with a great scoreline and a lot of damage dealt. And there are a lot of 80 carries, myself included, who just die to burn those cooldowns.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, credit over to basically everyone on IG. This felt like another really clean win coming out from them, and that is a sentence that I feel like I am going to have to get used to saying a little bit more often, Dia, as that was not something that was very commonly spoken. That sentence was not exactly the most common thing in the course of split number 1. But this just looks like, you said, a different IG, one that is playing to their strengths, one that is playing around this mid-jungle, and one that understands their identity to a higher degree than what we saw in the regular season and the Knights rivals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very curious whether they're able to close this series out cleanly. If they can do it in 4 games, I think I'm walking away from here going, IG simply had the better character arc, and I think
I'm convinced.
Yeah, but if they do it in 5, importantly, I'm not. If IG takes 5 games to close this out, it feels a little luckier.
If it gets to 5, you're going to be a lot more entertained for the 5th game.
That's true.
So realistically, you win some and you win some. If you think about it, if you want to keep an optimistic mindset, even if you're not convinced at their level if they win at 5, you will be entertained if they go to 5.
That is very true. Also, quick shout out here as well. Key champion from their first series, Jwei picks up the Alistair once again, wins once again, and a key champion for NIP shut down that 100% win rate Ahri, sent to the gulag. No longer 100% win rate.
Yeah, unfortunately, Care not going to be able to maintain the perfect record on his Ahri any longer. It will be snuffed out by Rookie and the Invictus Gaming squad. But Dia, going into game number 4, I feel like we were talking about the French picks and the pocket picks coming out here for IG. I want to see a little bit more of that here from NIP. I feel like it was a contributing factor to their ability to beat Invictus Gaming the first time around when these teams last met. Things like the Diana, things like the Draven that we keep harkening back to with excitement. We want to see picks like that come out again. And when your back is against the wall, or not even a wall, more like a void that has no bottom, because literally if you lose, you will be sent into the void, at least until split 2 where you get fished out. You need to be pulling out all the stops. And so NIP, when they're backed into a corner, when their back is against a void, what are they going to pull out is my big question here.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. NIP's drafting has been a bit strange today. And that's not entirely Flame. Some of it is Flame, but it's not entirely Flame. And it has very frequently been responsive to IGs. I do want to really bow down here. The Lee Sin pick, I was a doubter. I was a non-believer.
I was a believer.
I thought it was. I thought it should have been Nocturne. I thought we were trolling. Jwei, a very well-deserved player of the game.
Yes, and I feel like proxy player of the game has to also go over to Rookie just because of the setup that he provided for Jwei to be unleashed in that game on the Lee Sin. So again, going back to this mid jungle that has been so impactful at allowing IG to be convincing over the course of these last few weeks. Even in their losses, I feel like you can see IG have more of a foothold on their identity as a team, and that going forward into a team, an organization that is kind of looked at to be more of a long-term project with players like Soboro joining the team, I think is really reassuring that it isn't actually just going nowhere, that you are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel as Invictus Gaming, that there are win conditions to every single member, and that this team, given enough time, practice, and resources, really can turn into a competitive monstrosity that could, with one more win, take NIP out in a revenge series for the ages.
Yeah, that light at the end of the tunnel, only one game away. That light happens to be AL, which is a little awkward, but it would be an important advancement and the potential for IG to make a little more headway in that matchup than they did during the regular season. All that, though, yet to be determined because they still could lose control of this series. NIP, we know that they've got stuff to throw back at IG. What will they pull out, and will IG be able to shut it down? We will find out after the break.